We're live. Welcome, Patty. It's fabulous, fabulous to have you here. It's been well overdue. You and I were supposed to meet up in June, in September, and here we are on a divine day,
Here we are. Yeah.
2nd of December.
Definitely divine timing.
That's just such a pleasure to have you. Now, I think
Thank
I've
you.
just got you saying, can you introduce yourself with something audacious?
Yeah, gosh. Well, there's so many things I could tell you, but I think that my favorite that always takes people for surprise is that I used to be a snitch for the FBI
Oh my God. Definitely.
many years ago, but it was a lot of fun, and it's true. And my code name was Barbell.
Bob, well, you're going to have to I didn't know that. So now you've started with that. You're going to have to tell us a little bit more about that story.
Yeah. Well, I used to, after I had gone through a divorce years ago, I started dating an FBI agent, and they needed somebody to break up a drug ring that could go into clubs and so or restaurants, and all I had to do was sit and listen to conversations, and if I heard anything, I just had to tell them, and they would come and slap some cash in my hand, and everybody was happy.
Wow. Wow. Telling about, what people don't know about us. But I'd love to hear maybe a little bit more about that. Not that particular story, but any of your story. You've got some amazing stories throughout your life. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess what I would say is, you and I were talking before earlier, and I said, I was like, well, gosh, audacious. What does audacious mean to me? Because we all have different ways of looking at things. And, one of the things that I shared with you is that one of the definitions was recklessly bold and daring. And I thought, oh my gosh, that was so me in the first half of my life. The reckless part for sure. I never thought about or worried about how I was going to do anything. I just did things. And so, I was the person who I didn't have a resume. I never had, never put together a business plan. I would just talk to people. And I had this ability through things that I was passionate about to just really touch, move, and inspire people to give me money, support me, want to help me with whatever it was that I want to accomplish. And so everything started from there. And I always knew that, I would just dive right in. And I always well, I can sort of smooth the waters out and fix the things that got messed up later. But for me, I was always moved from a vision and what I would call what felt like just like pure potential moving through me. And I would respond to that. And that's how my life rolled from there. And it always worked out for me. A lot of people would say to me, and people still say to me, you make everything look too easy. It's like you wave your magic wand and things just happen. And that's true to an extent. I do make things look easy, but I think the reason I make things look easy is because when I'm willing, I had radical faith in myself. And the more important thing is that when I came upon the most challenging times in my life, I didn't make a big deal about it. Like I just faced it. I really had the courage and the bravery to just face things as they were. And as I look back into that part of myself, that's not an easy task, but it's always who I've been.
I love that, Patty. And actually, you and I were talking about, so, for me, my mission is really to redefine audacity. And thank you for starting with that definition that you found in the dictionary is, we all know it, that it's boldness, to the point of being reckless, I think, the courage part, but it's also adding this dimension of caring for me. So it's courage, caring, and the non-conformity. Again, I think audacity, we all know it for this sort of non-conformity streak. But I would love for us to explore, because you and I were talking about, the old self, if you like, that part of us, and then the new part of you, and how that fits into one of those pillars for you.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because as you know, I went through an unexpected journey with cancer. And that was the catalyst for something that began to give me a different view of my life, what was important to me, but also that ability to now look at, I'm in the second half of my life. I'm 71 years old, and I have no intention of stopping. I have no desire to retire, but I do have all of a sudden this way of how I'm looking at life, whereas like there's the first half of my life and my love for who I said to you she was, the Patty Ivey for that first half of my life. And then there was a chunk of time, if I'm honest, where I was struggling for about 5 years because I was still that visionary entrepreneur, and yet I kept having it laid on me that I was getting older. When are you going to retire? And I found it, pretty like confusing. I wouldn't even say offensive. It was just confusing to me of how that's how I was viewed. And so I was not inspired. I felt kind of lost. Then the journey of cancer hit me. And now I had all of this opportunity and space and quiet to say, wait a minute, like that's who I was then, and wow, she was amazing. But now I've had the audacity. Let's say this: I've had the audacity to change this point of view for myself of elderly to the elder. And it's given me a very different new perspective of where I'm planting my feet now and who I want to be as a contribution, to the world. Because that's always what's mattered to me. I've always wanted to change the world. And, people think that's funny, but I think it's like, why wouldn't we want to change the world if we can even just change our one little corner of it, So that's where I think has been something pretty fantastic that's happened, that I can be like, oh, I love that Patty Ivey, but I really love this Patty Ivey more because now I get who I am. Before then, I was like a wild cannon, just shooting everywhere, doing incredible things. And now I could have a real appreciation for that, but bring it in a little bit more to something that feels meaningful at this second half of my life.
I love that. And I love that distinction between, elderly and the elder. I mean, and the appreciation for this part, as you said, and also for who she was, the amazing Patty Ivey. But I'd love to, and I know, in a way, I'd love to hear, I know some of your story and how extraordinary it is, and how, amazing, extraordinary things you have achieved in that part of your life. So I'd love to, for you to share maybe one audacious part of that extraordinary journey.
Well, I think I've opened a number of businesses in like the drop of a hat. It's just I would get inspired. Like I owned bakeries called the Cookie Lady, right? And that started because I read an article on way back when Mrs. Fields. I don't know if you remember hearing about her. And she was, opening all these locations. And I remember, at the time looking at my then husband and saying, I could do that. And I went out and I bought a mix master. And in the middle of the night, he's sleeping and I'm coming up with recipes for cookies. And then I called my accountant. I'm like, I want to open up this, store called the Cookie Lady. And he goes, you don't have any money. I'm like, yeah, I know. But I heard that there's like, angel investors. Can't you just get me an angel investor? He's like, it doesn't really work that way. He said, put together a business plan. So I showed up at his office and he had 3 men in there. And my idea of a business plan was like, 3 scribbles on a page, right? And then my passion. And I just started talking. And this was, back in the 70s. And I walked out with a check for $50,000 in my hand. And that's how that business got going. And it always went that way. So, I just assumed that it would work out. I wasn't afraid to ask or try it or do it. And it ended up, we had lines out the door, and then the same thing happened when I opened my yoga studios. Like I didn't do yoga. I went to a class and I was so inspired. It was such an incredible experience that I walked up to the, my teacher, who, it was his studios, and he was an international yoga teacher. And I'm like, I want to do like, what's your plans for growth? And we just had like this little conversation. And I left that one class. It was the only yoga class I ever took. And I went home and I opened Down Dog Yoga, just like that. And had no idea what I was doing. But it didn't matter. If you bring your love and your passion to things, people will rise. That was been my experience. People would really rise for me because they were just inspired by who I was and my zest for life.
I love it. Actually, it's inspiring even just listening to you and your story, because it's impossible not to get inspired by passion. And I love it.
It's impossible to not get inspired by passion.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
And I think in today's world, so many people, I got caught in this box of like, high performer. Yeah, okay, maybe, right? Yes. But that's not really who I am at the core of things, right? And I think that so many entrepreneurs today can really get stuck in their heads, and it's about the knowledge, and it's like, I don't know, man, open up your heart and just like go for it. Yes. And it may not be the world today that it was years ago. We could go and give a talk with scribbles on a page and walk out with a check, but I don't know, maybe you can.
I think you can. I mean, I'm convinced you can, because it's all about the mindset. You and I know that. And, I wrote about that in my own book, that chapter of assurance, which is the courage to say yes. For me, I live my life with, I always lead with the question, why not?
Yeah.
And
why not?
And so many people around me is like, why? Why do you think you can do that, Alina? And I get so frustrated is because I immediately, why not? Why not?
Well, my experience has been is that, people want to line up and give you all the reasons of why it won't work.
Exactly.
And my thing always was, you've never even done this, so you don't get to tell me, right? Like where are you speaking from other than your own fear and your own negativity? And so, I made a lot of mistakes, but I also had no problem making the mistake, picking myself up, brushing myself off, and you keep moving forward. Totally. But that's what happens is like, there's a line of people wanting to tell you why it won't work. And we just, if you really believe in something in your heart, and you just got to brush that stuff off and find the people that will rally around you and support whatever it is that you want to do.
And it's tough though, you're absolutely right, because there will be, there's always reasons things will not work.
Yes.
And it's, to have that mindset of, let's try. And of course there will be many mistakes, as you said. God, it's just many times. That's life.
Listen, I ended up in a lawsuit with my a business partner that I took on years after I opened my yoga studio. And, point being that, over 3 years, I was dragged through the courts, and it cost me like, $1.5 million to get out of it. But you know what? Like I was still standing when I came out, and Down Dog got even bigger and stronger after that. And the people who believed in me, they all showed up in the courtroom. The judge called, my name, and everybody stood up in the room that was there for me. And that's the kind of thing that can happen, right? So I made it through that. And there was a period of time where I thought to myself, oh my God, this like ruined my life. And then I thought, why do you keep saying that? You're still standing and you're still moving forward. It did not take me down. And so we really get to, when things go wrong, the same thing with my journey with cancer, that's not exactly something that went right, but there's always goodness that can come out the other side of it. And we really get a full picture of the fabric that we're made of when those kind of times, whether it be illness or a lawsuit or whatever it is, we get a very full picture of ourselves and who we are and the fabric that we're made of.
Yes. What comes to mind, Pat, is that, ability to respond, I always say, to what's in front of us. actually.
Yes.
And you and I were talking about some of the books that we love and we've been sort of, reading recently. And one of them that sort of came to mind that I'm rereading is it's called The Gift by Edith Eger. And I mean, she talked about it. I mean, it's a beautiful book that she wrote into her 70s about the Holocaust. I would recommend it to everybody. She wrote two books, The Choice and The Gift. And it was a gift given by a client of mine. And then I gifted it. It was a couple of years ago to so many people. But that's, for her, it's the same thing about you get down and then you get up. And then that's what life is all about. And I think she's got a beautiful quote which says something like, the prison is in your mind.
Yeah.
And the keys in your pocket.
Oh, I love that.
And that's all it is. It's just like to me is that philosophy of why not? Just it's happened. What have you learned? There is no failure, just feedback. There is no obstacle. It's just the opportunity that's been given. It's a constant reframing.
Well, we can be the ones that are in our way more than anything else, right? And it's challenging to, it's an invitation to lift our eyes and look through a new lens. I've read two books, and the one that got me through, like when I first came through the completion of my treatment with cancer, I thought, well, now what? Like, I don't want, that you ring the bell and they like go forth and get on with your life. And you're like, easy for you to say, right? And I remember thinking, I don't want life to go back to what everybody sees as normal. And people couldn't wait for that. Oh, thank God that's behind you. But it wasn't behind me. It was like, so I wanted to figure out or feel like, well, what could this be? And I read the book called Cured, and it was Cured, and it was written by Dr. Jeffrey Rediger, and he's a Harvard medical doctor. I think he's retired now, but he brought you through a whole experience of, regarding health, right? And the things that are killing, the diseases that are killing 2/3 of Americans, and the superhighway of that being chronic stress and inflammation, right? Now, fast forward, I would recommend everybody read that. It's one of my Bibles. But fast forward, he says at the end, which I loved, he talked about you can do all the right eating, you can do all these different things, right? You can get the right sleep, but unless you get right with yourself, it's not going to matter. Nothing matters. And I thought, wow, like that really spoke to me because, he had statistics on how doing meditation changed people's lives and gave them longer life, all those things. But you still have to get right and whole with who you are, So that was an interesting exploration for me coming through that of like, well, where do I still have what I say is have holes in my boat? So I really spent a lot of time over the past 6 months in that inquiry, and now I'm not quite finished with it, but I'm reading a book called Wise Women. I'm actually listening to it because it's in fairy tale. It's told as stories, and so I like listening to it. It's by Sharon Blackie, and it's talking all about the importance of women and what it looks like to move from elderly to the elder, and reframing. If you think about how women were looked at in the old fairy tales, we were like witches, right? With warts on our nose. And, there's an expression that I read. It was something like, when the devil can't make it, he'll put two women to walk on either side of you, right? So like women were framed as like not in the positive sense. And so this book is folklore and stories about the incredible things that women did over those years throughout medieval times. And it's fascinating. Like I literally rewind and take notes on it. It's so great. So, and it's all about women, after menopause, like is really considered the second half of our lives, and how we're the ones that have to change the story so that the second half of our lives can be dazzling and that we're not just sitting and waiting for life to be over. So I would highly recommend that too.
And I love that. It's that choice, as you said, it's just that choice to be the elder and to be dazzling, as you said. And you and I met you just brought into my consciousness, we were in Sedona together in June this year. Actually, God, it sounds like a century
I
ago.
know, right?
And it was one of those wonderful moments of spending time together with some wonderful women. But you and I were talking about also, what is dazzling for you in this new stage of your life. And you mentioned to me the tent talks, which really inspired me. So I just wanted to.
You're the first one to know about it other
I
than my
know.
husband, by the way, right?
I know.
And I'm very excited about it. And I had this, it started with this idea that I wanted to create like a sacred space in nature for myself, where I could have an altar, where I could go to pray and chant and sing and bring gifts to my altar. And then it just exploded into this idea of, I saw this tent and I thought, oh, I'm going to get this tent. And then it just came to me that where I want to put my time is like, I don't have to be the one doing all the things out in the world anymore. There's an age group where they've got all the fire, but what they don't have is good mentorship. They need elders to move them through these, to give them an experience of what it's like to move through life, and just as suggestions, and then they'll make their own choices. And so I got this idea, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to invite people into this tent and do, other things. And then tent talks just came to mind because it feels very expansive. I feel like I can still take that anywhere from group mentorship and coaching or one-on-one to, have this dream of writing a tiny book, almost like a modern day prayer book, to giving, some small group talks to, wherever I can bring value of a life that has been very lived in my perspective,
Beautiful. Tell me, I mean, again, for the audience, I know that but where in the world is this tent of yours?
So I live northeast of Boston on Plum Island. It's 45 minutes. And gosh, it's like a fast flight into Boston. And to get out to my property, there's nothing like getting in that tent.
I'm just wondering. Yeah, fabulous.
Yeah, it's very close. It's very northeast of Boston, very close to the New Hampshire line, and not too far from Maine. I'm only an hour from DC. I'm in the, we're close to everything. So yeah, come sit with me in my tent.
No, absolutely. I mean, talking about audacious ideas and audacious dreams, and you recalled, your bakery and the yoga, and then here we go. We now creating the tent, and who knows what that tent will become. And
we don't know.
We don't know, but it's about just setting that intention. The intentionality of creating something beautiful and audacious. And yeah, I think I also mentioned to you when you say the tent, because we do at Adapta, we do our Audacious Leaders Retreats every May, and now we've started a new sort of well-being, which is called Return to Self in November. So now we have two. But one of my business partner, Carmen, always had this dream of having some tents on.
I love it.
We haven't yet done, but who knows? Maybe this May. Maybe, I mean, she always said I'll be the first one to sleep in the tent. So why not?
Why not?
Here we go.
I mean, there's always going to be people that are like, I don't want to sleep in a tent. Okay, then don't, right? But there's always somebody who will.
Absolutely. And I mean, actually, I slept in a tent when I went with my daughter in Ghana last year, and it was the most extraordinary experience of my life. I mean, it was uncomfortable, to hell, how uncomfortable it was. And it was the most memorable and most beautiful holiday we've ever had in terms of connection.
Yeah, and what I would say to you is that look at it more like a yurt, right?
Yes,
it's the same thing. Like my tent can fit a bed, right? I'm going to put an altar in there. It's about creating the experience, right? I'm not interested in laying down on rocks in a tent that's got nothing in it but a sleeping bag. But my idea, it's the experience of when you step into it that one will have with all of the beauty. And then, where I live on the water, where the hawks fly right over this tent, and there's marsh, and, we live right in the middle of like a wildlife preserve. Like, who wouldn't want to get in that tent?
Who wouldn't? I can't wait to hear about, the 10 this time next year, for you and I to sort of celebrate and appreciate what's been created.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, wow. And actually, the other thing I wanted to explore a little bit with you and I were talking about you winning something recently, and that really made me laugh out loud.
Yes. So, I was sharing with you how I won a free juicer, a very expensive juicer. And I'm not that person who wins things. That's what I told myself.
Yeah.
That was a story, right? And so when I see things that are on Instagram where it's like, tag this, follow that, and I'm like, ugh, I'm never going to win. And, but I thought, I don't know. I just was like, I've got the time this morning. I was drinking a cup of coffee, and it was on the cancer, breastcancer.org. And a woman who was celebrating 2 years of remission from a very serious form of cancer she had. And she's an award-winning chef. So she was giving this free giveaway. She teamed up with Namawell, which is a fabulous juice company. And so I'm like, okay, tag this, say that, comment there, do this. And it took like 15 minutes, and I won.
Of course.
I won the juicer. So I was jumping up and down. I couldn't even believe it. I called every friend of mine, and now I'm like, here I am with my beet juice. Every morning I make fresh juice for me, for my husband. We're having a ball. It's fantastic. So
yeah, and you feel inspired in that moment, as you said, and to do things that you don't normally do, and then just go with the flow and stay open, as you said. And you reminded me, because my book came out in August on the 22nd, and we again at Adapter were thinking, how can we encourage people to give reviews, because it's a bit of a chore, a review on Amazon, but we did offer a place at our retreat in Transylvania, and then we did the raffle, we shuffled it, and it was someone that came on talking about serendipity. You cannot make this up. You cannot make this up. So Helen came, and she did it through the name of her husband, and we announced it live, on a LinkedIn Live with Helen Wadda, and it was probably one of these. I think it is the most viewed LinkedIn Live because of her reaction.
I love it.
Like, I've never won anything ever, not even £5, and here she was. And it was fantastic. So you actually inspired me. I might do another one. I've lost you. Okay, so rather than sort of losing, maybe that Patty will come back, and then I'm just going to acknowledge the people who just said hello to us, and just continue what I was going to say to Patty. I'm hoping that she will still join me, but I had this audacious, crazy idea to run another competition between now and the end of the year. So between what day is today? 2nd of December to the 30th. So if you will do a review on the Audacity Spectrum, take a picture of the review on Amazon, send it to us at office@adapter.co.uk, and then you will be put automatically in with a chance to be part of a coaching group or peer coaching group, so that anybody who does it between now and then, or even people who already did it, I'm thinking out loud now in the moment, we can put your name on the list, and then we will get someone out of that for a winner with the one-to-one coaching with me. And you're back. Can you imagine? This has happened to me twice now.
Oh,
and my
gosh.
guest dropped out. Guess what I did? I made that big announcement about a competition that I'm going to put out in the next few days.
All right. Well, I'm going to win, so people are going to have competition. Get in the game, folks. Get in the game. I'm going to be there doing my best to beat you.
Thank you so much. Actually, there was just, you, as I said, when I lost you, it's like, okay, that the universe is testing me. It's not the first time. I had Nikki, maybe sort of in spring, and she dropped in the first 5 minutes of our call. You dropped in the last 5 minutes of our call. Just talking about just how do you respond to moments like this is like awkward.
Yeah, just go with it. Yeah, well, I mean, I've been awkward most of my life, so it's all good.
Oh my God, but it is, I have to say, even for me, it's like, oh my God, I'm on my own in front of the camera. It's very uncomfortable. I love to have someone who I talk to be on my own and talking to a camera. It's not a comfortable place for me. So I'm really grateful that you
Well, you had a breakthrough today. There you go, right?
I did, and I'm so grateful for you. And I'm so grateful for you just joining me today.
I'm grateful for you. I have so much love for you, and I can't wait to see you in person. Give you a big hug.
Again, me too. And I actually cannot wait to come and experience that tent of yours. It just sounds phenomenal. And let's just I was going to say not drink to that because I don't drink, but just
I don't drink either anymore, and that's
exactly. But just appreciate it. We are in the gratitude season. We've just had your Thanksgiving, so really grateful to you, for you. And then let's do this again.
Yes, anytime.
Fabulous. Thank you, Patty. Thank you. And thank you, everybody who's joined us today. Thank you.
Bye.
And bye.